started, let's see here. Then, do you know what the topic of my thesis is about, first of all?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay, good. And so pretty much I'm trying to test to see if the increase in child witchcraft accusations only takes place in collapsed and deteriorated states and failed states, or if it can also occur in semi-democratic and democratic states.
Um, my country is a democratic state, and we have
Your
that.
country? Huh?
My country, Nigeria,
Yeah.
is a democratic state,
Yeah.
and we have child witch issue going on there. So there's it does not exempt any um, state in Africa at the moment, um, except one country that was recently divided. It's a country that was recently divided in Africa. I'm trying to get the name. But I know that that is the only country. I'm gonna check that later. I'm let you know the name of the country. South Sudan. South Sudan. Yeah.
Sudan and South Sudan.
Yeah.
Yeah, those the most recent nation state that has been
Yes.
created.
Yes. South Sudan is the only
Yeah.
state at the moment in Africa that we are yet to see issue of witchcraft being of child being labeled witchcraft in that country. That's the only country at the moment in Africa that I can say we have not recorded. But that does not mean it is not there. So that goes a long way to tell you that in every part of Africa we have issues like that. In Cameroon, which I have been there, I have witnessed it. We have issues like that. Nigeria, Chad, Congo, DR, CAR,
Yeah.
all of this country, they have witchcraft. Even in some of the countries, we have issues where the government believe that people could be witches and sanction those who are believed to be witches to stop them from practicing an unexistent witchcraft issue. Like recently, the outgoing president, Jame government was believed to go against people who were said to be witches. So you understand that kind of a situation that even some of the government believe that witchcraft exists, and as long as such belief is prevalent, you definitely realize that the people there are going to suffer the impact.
So you don't believe that regime type or government type would essentially have as big of an influence as just the presence of a belief system itself?
Well, my understanding is that the system of government at the moment in Africa does not change the perception of witchcraft, especially as long as those government religious practice are there, religious practices are there. There's actually no country in Africa where religion is not practiced. So either it is traditional religion, modern religion like Islam, Christianity, the most. And I also understand that Christianity is a religion that really hype much on this witchcraft issue. So there's no
Yes,
virtually no country that you can say that does not you will not witness the issue of witchcraft, abuse, and torture.
and if I may ask, so I agree with what you say, but do you believe that there is a particular type of victim of witchcraft accusations. For example, from what I've read in my studies, the typical victim would have usually been elderly women within society that would be accused of witchcraft more frequently than any other type of person. Do you believe that children are more commonly accused, or is there another victimology there?
I understand that children at the moment are the most vulnerable set of people, but um, witchcraft abuse started with the elderly people who are about the age of 70 upward. But today I can see that 65 of a person of 65 years of age are also beginning to get the impact, especially those found to have poverty, believed to be affected by poverty. They are actually the ones affected. But children, from my understanding, in my country, Nigeria, for instance, child which is started in early 2000,
Yeah.
so, but before then, we didn't have anything like child witches, but we had issues involving um, elderly people who were stigmatized, tortured, and abused. But from 2000, we begin to have um, issue in connection with children. So since then, that has not departed. It is ongoing, and I would say it is unabated. And even though the government has enacted laws to prohibit that, but you still have issue of witchcraft going on. Our belief is that um, people need orientation, people need enlightenment, people need to be. I'm very careful of saying education in this context because to be enlightened is actually different from being educated. So
Yes.
you have people who are educated, but they believe in witchcraft. You have people who are doctors, who are lawyers. You have people who have PhD. They believe in witchcraft. When I was schooling, I was returning from school. Um, a senior friend of mine who was doing his PhD, who was a PhD candidate, I was doing a BA, so we happened to meet on the same boat where we were traveling back home. So he congratulated me of my work, but told me that he heard of my interview, but all what I was saying were false. And I asked him what were the false aspect that he got. He said for me to stay on the television and say that witchcraft is not real. It makes marks of my insincerity, So, and he even told me that I should stop preaching against witchcraft belief. Otherwise, there's going to be a place that I mount the podium to preach, and somebody's going to stone me. So.
No, but I also agree that there's a difference between education and enlightenment. Often people say education is the problem, but it's not the particular instance.
Yeah.
If I may circle back to another question, you said that since the early 2000s has been when children have been the victims of it. Do you have any professional idea as to why this could be started in 2000, why it happened then?
The simple reason to that is we had people, some religious personage and filmmakers who came out with a particular theme. And the film portrays children to be witches. The film portrays children, how children torture their parents, how children manhandle their parents, dehumanize them in the coven, and unsympathetically dealt with them. So such films were distributed in the whole country, and being that it was a kind of homemade movie, people like to watch homemade movie, you know. So watching those films changed the narrative of the witchcraft belief. It made people to now pivot to the fact that, okay, witchcraft is no longer the issue of elderly people. It is now, it involves children. And, you know, children with the issue of HIV/AIDS coming to decimate parents and allow children to become orphans, and some of them find themselves in orphanages, or some of them find themselves in on the street. So they are actually, excuse me, vulnerable, because more often than not, when they are asked questions of their involvement in witchcraft, and they deny it, they're going to be beaten. So once a child is beaten and he accepts that I'm a witch, he or she does not have any platform to denounce that. Because sometimes those who accept that they are witches, they believe that if they accept being a witch, they definitely are going to be treated with some sort of leniency or be pardoned, you know, because as long as they keep denying that they are not witches, they're going to continue to receive the torture. They're going to be beaten, you know, until they finally concede that, oh, I'm a witch. So it was in that kind of period that we started having children being labeled as witches, and you know, so I would say in a nutshell, it is those kind of themes and religious music and preaching that came out during that period that really portray children to be witches.
Okay. So that's a different angle than actually what I've mostly been seeing within the research that I've been looking at, because oftentimes they say that the early 2000s is the time when child soldiers became a large phenomenon in many African countries, and so that changed also the narrative of the way children are seen. Would you agree with that as well, or have any opinion on that?
Well, it depends actually on the country. It depends largely on the country and specific region. What exactly really took effect during that period. But my understanding is that African country, we do share cultures, or we share a religion, and we also share some social phenomenon. And for instance, the movie that I'm talking about, it is not only watched in Nigeria, it is watched everywhere in Africa. And these religious preachers who center their preaching mostly on witchcraft, they do travel. They travel lots to different African countries. They even travel to European countries to sell themselves, to sell their religion, to sell their beliefs, to sell their teaching, to
Yeah.
sell they preach out to people and sell their movies. They also have their preaching recorded in different videos. You have them on YouTube, so they spread them, and especially in this area of social media now,
Yeah.
there's no limit, there's no bound to that. So during that period, my strongest belief is that uh, such belief must have been spread to different countries, despite the regime that was there at that moment, or whether there was a war or there was a peace, does not stop people from buying movies, does not prohibit people from accessing YouTube, does not stop preachers from going to those countries and lay out their preachings to churches, to group of people holding crusade, and spread their teaching. So it was to whether you have a collapsible state or a
Yeah.
democratic state does not hold any water. Does not mean any. It doesn't make any difference. So, if you say maybe a country that there was a war that triggered this off, we have so many countries that there have been wars, but you don't have witchcraft going on there. And you have some countries that there's no war, and you have witchcraft going on there. We have, for instance, I don't know if there's a war in Papua Guinea. I don't
No.
know, but there is witchcraft going on there in Papua Guinea. And Papua Guinea, I'm not sure it's Africa. It's not. So we have issues like that also in countries like in different countries. I would not say it is only Africa alone that we have witchcraft issue. Even in UK, right now there is witchcraft issue going on there, but
Yeah.
I understand that the government in UK is seriously tackling those issues, and if you look at it closely, you would see the nexus of African people who are living in Britain and coming from Africa to Britain and having a connection with their home country. Some of them will even have to consult the what they call juju, black magic,
Yeah.
to understand the concept or the prevalence of witchcraft that affecting them directly or indirectly. Some of them who bring their close relation to the Britain from Africa, they tend to
Yeah.
accuse those children or person as involved in witchcraft practice. So you can still see the connection has not been severed from Africa.
No. I've also read as well that actually I think I read about mostly Angolans that would travel to the UK and as a diaspora community, and then as a consequence of that, that's where the witchcraft beliefs in the UK were also prominent from.
Oh yeah. I think I've seen uh, cases like that prevalent in the United Kingdom. So, like I said, we have a democratic state in the United Kingdom, and that is
Yeah.
not really Africa, but you have a good nexus between Africa and the UK relative to witchcraft issue that is going on there. And the good news is that the UK government is tackling those issues to the letter.
Yeah.
But in Africa, given that some of the politicians, did I say some? No. All of the politicians, they believe in witchcraft. They believe in
So
witchcraft.
do you think that laws could help stop the abuses and the violations of child and human rights in this area? Do you think law can help this?
Law can help. Law does not stop it. You can put in, no matter the law that you put in, even if it is the law would trigger off capital punishment. That does not stop witchcraft. What actually stops witchcraft is the education, the enlightenment of the community, the change of mentality of the people, the involvement of the government. Let me say, for instance, the greatest time I have ever reconciled children in flocks was when the government put out a commission to investigate witchcraft in my state, Nigeria, in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. That was the greatest moment we reconciled, we reunited children, and I would say in flocks. Yes, that amount has never been before that time and after that period. So you see children, parents flocking in, coming to pick their children, and letting, persuading us to give them their children. Why? Because they saw government involved. The government was announcing the issue on the radio. The commission, let me put it that way, the commission that the government set up was announcing the witchcraft commission activities in the radio, which the local community actually listen a lot to radio, and they put that too on TV and discuss about it. And I would say some of the commission issues were streamlined, were broadcast in real life, in real time. They were broadcast in real time, and people became aware of government involvement at that period. So they saw the government talking about it, condemning it, and children who were in our center at that time, we were looking for volunteers, we were looking for more staff to get involved in the process of reconciling children, because reconciling children, we sometimes give up to 2 weeks to educate the parent, and to make them sign different papers involved before they can take out the children, and for us to go there to the community and look at where those children are going to be staying, and even going there to visit the children once the children get back home. So it actually was a lot of tax to us, because we had other things at that moment to handle. We were also given the commission report, compiling reports to give to them. So you understand the situation become that was an extra job for us to reconcile a greater chunk of the children who were going home. And before then, the law was in place. The law was in place, but people did not come this far to pick their children. But once the commission set in and begin to make broadcasts on TV, on radio, and people were gripped with the fact that, government is involved, so certain punitive measures are going to be taken. So let's get involved. Let's pick my children. So I would say lesser children were rescued during that period. More children were reconciled during that period. So the government involvement, the announcement of the activities of the Witchcraft Commission were actually a part of enlightenment. I would say the greatest enlightenment campaign that we ever witnessed was that time. Our own campaign, I would say, did not create that impact as the commission that was set up by the government.
Right, so it was more of an impactful movement because it came from the government itself.
Of course, it came from the government. People hear the government speaking, and they understand that the government meant business, and the government was going to come down heavily with people stigmatizing children as witches. So they get on dust whatever they were doing, get on board and pick up the children. And we had a lot of volunteers at that time who were telling us where children were hiding, where children were kept secretly in various churches, prayer houses. People identified such children brought to us. In fact, some of the prayer houses deliberately who were keeping those children for, I would say, as a cash cow, release those children, for us to pick them and reconcile with the parent. Because sometimes they keep the children claiming they are carrying out deliverance on the children, and those children would be in that prayer house for more than 6 months, sometimes a year, and they could even transfer those children. Those children could even live there and go to other churches because the parent believed that they were not the preacher or the prophet was not able to deliver in that very prayer house. So they now see the need to transfer them to a different powerful a place they believe that was powerful than that. So in that process, we had a lot of children coming out on the street, going back to the parents. So when government is involved, the narrative change. That is what but it's actually very difficult to get a government involved. But I must say that in my own state, for instance, the government has been involved, but the problem is the politicians working with government, they are worshippers of all these fake churches. They are worshippers of these preachers. So they protect the preachers, and they believe that our campaign, our activities is inimical to what the preachers are saying, and they see us as enemies at the same time working against the preachers. We are not enemies. We are also part of the people to build a community and the nation.
Okay.
Hello?